Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. Hello, welcome to World Inkers Network. I am Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. And today it's 10 a.m. and where I'm at, Central Standard Time. This will be a regular time for the show on Saturday, so please stay tuned. Today we have an excellent guest, Sushant Thapa, who holds a master's degree in English literature from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. He is a Nepalese poet from Biratnagar, Nepal, and is the author of two poetry collections, actually three poetry collections now. The first being The Poetic Burden and Other Poems, published by Authors Press, New Delhi, India in 2020, and Abstraction and Other Poems, published by Inspired in 2021 from England. His English poems are featured in a variety of wonderful literary journals, including the True Valet Review, Lifehouse, Ecophonic Magazine, International Time, New York Parrot, My Republica, the Kathmandu Post, Sahityo Bilingual Literary Magazine, Indian Periodical, Ponder Savant, Grey Thoughts, the Gorkha Times, the Piker Press, Lothlorien Poetry Journal, Offline Thinker, Sahitya Post, Tunis Poetry, EKL Review, Harbinger Asylum, Dumpster Fire Press, Inspired Magazine, Sinda Courier, Akshagrong, Kabita Manar, Suradaya Literary Foundation, Visible Magazine, Willie Wash, The Beatnik Cowboy, Synchronized Chaos Journal, the Scorpiozine blog, Medusa's Kitchen, and As It Ought to Be magazine. 4 English poems written by Sushant have been translated into Uzbek, the language of Uzbekistan, and published in the online literary magazine Nodira Begim of Uzbekistan. He has also been anthologized in 3 English poetry collections entitled Pandemic Poetry 2020 and an anthology of poetry for children. One of Sushant's poems has appeared in the Literary Parrot anthology published by none other than My Transcendent Zero Press and New York Parrot, New York, USA. One of his poems entitled Festivities has been included in school books used to teach English to grade 6 students in Nepal. Sushant has also been included, written and published flash fictions and short stories from Kitab and Borderless Journal, Singapore. His 3 poems were translated into Latin American Spanish and published in the magazine Trinando of Mexico. Sushant is currently working on his first novel. We're going to talk a little bit about his most recent book, his 3rd book, today on the show. So welcome to the show, Sushant. How are you doing?
Yes, sir. I'm very great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about your 3rd book. How do you see yourself transitioning from your first, then to your second, and then to your 3rd? How do you find that is your style altered or developed, or are your themes changing any at all? Or how do you see yourself changing over the last, 2 or 3 years of writing and publishing?
Yes. So initially, when I was writing, my writing was more philosophical.
Okay.
It has that philosophical level of level of existence, that higher level of philosophy. So it got clarity. The verses, they become very simple as I transition from the first book to the third. And abstraction, which was published from England, so that is also about, it also has philosophy. So, and issues, I find different issues touching different issues, like some human realities, situations like that. So in the third book, so I was writing poems regularly. Each day I was writing a poem. And so for the third book, I must give my credit to Kavita Minar was publishing my poem regularly. Every day I was writing, so the verses are very they are not so philosophical. They have certain clarity.
Hmm.
And they are very diverse also. So the first one was totally philosophical, the poetic burden. It was like philosophical, and it had that romantic touch.
So, what sort of in the new book you say it's not so philosophical? What sort of approach do you take? You say clarity. What subjects are you writing on? What are some of your
So
themes?
there are very short poems also, like 5 lines, 6 lines poems, and I have also made my quotes into poems. And there are poems about war, and also it is about the daily reality. Uh,
Was there
so
a reason for that transition from more philosophical kind of depth approach to a sort of more concrete approach? Was it because of the publisher, or was it just a choice you
no,
made?
it's just a choice. And writings, they get simplified, so your ideas are itself not vague. You have
Mhm.
simplified your ideas, so ideas are not vague. You have simplified your ideas, and that has come through poetry. So it is more flowing kind of thing.
Mhm. So you think maybe like over time you have these complex ideas, maybe they're vague in a sense when you're starting off writing and trying to kind of elucidate some of these ideas, and as time progresses and as you do more writing, you start to break it down and make it a much more compact idea, and so
Yes.
your use of language changes, your thought process changes, and so do you find that writing is a good tool for clarifying ideas for you?
Yes, writing is good tool for clarifying ideas. It's a the very vague ideas can also be broken down, so it has its own meaning, so that you don't hide the meaning away.
Hmm.
So your meaning is always there, but the writing is very clear. It is very simple. So you have broken down the vague ideas.
Hmm.
And so the ideas have been broken down. You do not They are not vague anymore, so they are very simple, and all, so that any people can understand. Normal person also can understand.
Have you had a different readership since you changed your style, or do you have same sort of people reading, or have you brought newcomers to your writing?
So some of them, they are new people I meet on Facebook. I say sometimes share my poems and all. So, but readership is a different thing. So for a writer, when you are writing, readership is very necessary. But itself, when the ideas are becoming simple, so readers will appreciate it. So I don't think that readers have turned away, so they are appreciating it. And I was reading poems also by Louise Glick. She was the Nobel Prize winner in 2020. So I
Hmm.
was reading her poems also, and I did not find it vague. So it is very simple, and a different way of saying things. Suppose if I have to say time has stopped for me, she will say that time has, it has been slowed down, the time has slowed down its course. So that is a different way of saying. So that change of language, the metamorphosis in the language, that is very important. So that your language is not vague. So poetry is the spontaneity. And spontaneity can convey very simple ideas also, but it has to be in a poetic way, so that poetic way is always there.
How do you find when you're writing your editing process, or your, as you mentioned, like you're being spontaneous, and there's this process in editing where you want the poem to come out as flowing like in natural language, but it's more elevated. How do you go about doing that with your own poetry?
Yes, editing is the most difficult thing, which I find. Even
Mhm.
editing words, replacing the words and all, they are really, it is really difficult. You have to think about it after you write your first draft. So I do edit my work also for grammar, and
Mhm.
for grammar and coherence in it. So the ideas are they are so that they are conveyed very well. So I do edit, and when the language becomes simpler and it is spontaneous, so you don't have to worry too much about the grammar and all. So, but the poem has to make meaning, so that is it.
I agree, and I think editing. You want to clarify your ideas. You want to compact them. You want the language to be readable, but you also want it to be elevated in a sense that the reader is it feels in awe of the language. So how do you find yourself achieving those kind of results?
So my poems, now recently I'm writing 20 lines poems, 20 lines. So they are not very long also. So, and they are not very long. They are 20 lines poems, and so the ideas can be simpler also. So I talk about empathy, I talk about poverty, I talk about not being able to help the beggars. So these are all very social issues, and so I talk about war, so anti-war poems. Sometimes I try to be too much, to work on the alliteration, or you know uh, so alliteration and all, they also help to form your poem. So grammar is one thing, editing is one thing, and the structure of the poem. So structure of the poem is also helping you get ideas. So if you are using alliteration, so you will get some ideas. If you are using imageries, too much of imageries, that will make your poem, you know it will take your poem to a different course.
Hmm.
So uh, so these elements are also helping to bring the idea down to the paper.
Interesting. So, how do you feel about more obscure writers like they're writing obscure styles like say T.S. Eliot? I mean, you can
Yes.
relate to his some of the thoughts and feelings he presents, but the general message seems to be kind of like in the wasteland.
Yes,
It's
I
such
do
a
not. I
deep
do not
subject.
understand the four quarters also. So I was reading it. So it was very
Hmm.
vague. The present time. He talks about time, different times.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is difficult to understand. So I personally like Dylan Thomas.
Okay. Yeah. He's excellent. I like Dylan Thomas as well.
So
So
that poem,
it's wonderful.
poem about raising against the light, dying of the light. So
Uh-huh.
raise against the dying of the light, and when there is no sunshine, light enters. So there is one poem. So it's very very motivating kind of poetry. So T.S. Eliot is quite difficult. It's difficult to understand him.
Mhm.
So I hope to read it, understand later.
Yeah, there's a volume that came out of with a lot of annotations, and it's just collected poetry with all of these notes that kind of help illuminate some of the difficulties in his work. It came out recently. I think about 3 or 4 years ago, and that might help you a little bit if you find a copy of that. But yeah, I agree. He's very hard to, and he's tricky to read, and you can relate, you can feel the language, you can understand sort of on an emotional, intuitive level what's being said or what he wants to convey. But when it gets to like picking out the illusions and the technique and the various layers, it's like unraveling an onion or something. It's very tricky.
Mhm.
So, how do you see yourself, let's say 5, 10 years from now, as a poet writing? Do you see yourself becoming more lucid, or maybe changing styles to be a little more obscure? Or how would you envision yourself in a few years from now?
So I want to use the language in a more literary way. So uh, if there is a literary word, so sky. The Welkin is the literary word. Welkin is the literary word for sky. So I would like to choose that. So I would like to be more literary. So I'm personally thinking about it in poetry. So I have
Hmm.
been simplifying my ideas from the philosophy. So using the literary words, I think they will help me to stand out. And so I believe that poems should be very simple. You can use metaphors, simile, that's okay, but too much of imageries can also ruin sometimes.
Hmm.
And using literary words, so that will be my goal. So while writing poems.
Interesting. You mentioned philosophy. Is there any particular philosophical writers like I don't know, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, those guys that are sort of a backbone to your thinking?
Now I have, I think poetry in the initial days when I was writing, I had my own philosophy of looking at something.
Hmm.
Like if I would see a blackbird in a bow of a tree. So the bow is, the bow is, it's gray in color and the blackbird is black. So I think that the bow is colorless. So that would be my philosophy, that the bow is colorless and the bird is black, so black is colorful. So that is also, you can have your own philosophy in poetry, so that is interesting about it. So
Right.
and so concrete philosophies, like which philosophers provided. So if that can also be studied, it will be better, I think, but you have to really have a solid grip on it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting. You can abstract from life. When did you start thinking in those terms? Like, do you remember when the first time when you would say a tree and a blackbird and think more abstractly about those things? And was there
Yes,
any period in your life that you learned that level of thinking?
I was very free and I was just doing poetry back in 2019. I was just doing poetry after I completed my masters. So, and I was at home here. So I wrote that Blackbird poem in the Poetic Burden. The poem is there. So
Hmm.
I start observing the things around me. So poetry was that perception to me when I began writing.
Hmm.
Poetry was that perception. It was very interesting to think in that way. Although critics, they may say that, okay, your color coherence is not good, you cannot say black is beautiful, and all critics might say that. But a poet has a license, I think, to
Hmm.
think in a poetic way. That is more important than writing a poem, I think. That change of mind poetry will develop in you, so it's a way of perceiving the world. So that, I think, that is better than any philosophy out there.
Excellent. So, what encourages you most as a writer to continue, composing your poems?
Continuous writing, so that is, poetry has also become a habit, habit of expression. So first thing is expressing yourself, and then after you are working on your craft. So and then you are publishing, you're sending it for publication. So the first thing is your expression, what you feel daily. So
Mhm.
what you feel daily and what are your observations. So that is poetry, is that means, to communicate with oneself.
So, are there any things you're reading right now that are helping you develop your craft or making you think outside your box? Your normal
Yes, yes.
everyday thinking.
I was reading Louis Glick. I said earlier. So
Hmm.
she has very simple poems, and it is, very very poetic. So it's motivating also. So I read the Triumph of Achilles also by her.
Hmm.
So I found it very very interesting.
Yeah,
So
that's one of my favorites. I've actually read all of her work except the newest that she put out, and I read her collected poetry, and then her one of her newer books that came out, and that was one of my favorites. The Triumph of Achilles is interesting. It's there's a lot of depth to the thinking, but as you said, the simple language, just basic, you can relate to it on multiple levels. It's really intense to have that experience with poetry. So what is your next project coming? When is your next book? What is your thoughts going? What are you moving towards?
I regularly write and I regularly publish, send it for publication. So they get accepted also. And my fourth book is almost ready. I have around 100 poems.
Hmm.
I have 100 poems, and the book is ready. So I sent it for publications in different, online magazines and all. Like Lothlorien recently published my poem yesterday. So that poem also, I will include it in the anthology. So fourth book is almost ready.
Okay,
I'm working on it. The
excellent.
poems are ready, so there will be 100 poems.
100 poems. That's quite a number. That's a perfect number for a book. So good luck with it. Do you have any expectations of when that'll be published? I think we may have lost you on audio. We'll take a brief break, but we'll be right back with some of Sushant's poems. So just taking a brief break here and enjoy this poem by Dion Hunter.
3 seemingly simple words are changing the course of history and driving protesters into the streets. I can't
It will take around,
breathe.
3 to 4 months.
I can't breathe has been the final cry of too many of my brothers and sisters. And I can't breathe because their lack of oxygen is either caused by the boot on their neck or the stranglehold society has on the truth surrounding all the positive impacts African Americans have had on all aspects of American history. I can't breathe because popular culture has been lulled into believing that there should be no ill effects from the scars left behind by 400 years of slavery, or by receiving land only to have it stolen and pilfered back in the name of a robbery known as sharecropping, or by the fraud and theft surrounding the Freedman's Bank, or by living with the results of the Black Codes, Jim Crow, redlining, or even terrorism and murder. I can't breathe because I take the time to remember and mourn the innocent lives lost during the race massacres of New Orleans, Camilla, Colfax, and Cincinnati, just to name a few. I can't breathe because even after enduring all those atrocities, Blacks have made astonishing bounds that are relegated to the halls of the obscure, while textbooks feign false adoration for 3 or 4 of our kinfolk. I can't breathe because all people need to know the positive influence their forefathers had on civilization. Why do you believe that we are any different? Where are our statues? Where are our monuments? I can't breathe because while you proudly fly the Confederate flag, ranting that your history and heritage are so important, you shout that Blacks should just forget theirs and move on. How can these two mentalities exist on the same timeline, let alone in the same consciousness? I can't breathe because even slave owners received reparations for the loss of their human property, and their heirs still reap the benefits of their ancestors' crimes against humanity. Yet the men and women whose open wounds bled as they helped to build this more perfect union received no payments for services rendered. And the only inheritance set aside for their descendants is your intolerance and condemnation. I can't breathe because it's so hard for some to understand that separate but equal only ended 66 years ago, and in truth, separate was never equal. Unjust laws meant to shackle Black families into generational deprivation ensured that fact. And I can't breathe because systemic racism is being compared to the behavior of a small criminal minority in an effort to water down the bloodstains left behind by both, even though each has a direct correlation to the other. And I can't breathe because when you attempt to steal the pride and history of an entire population, unwanted repercussions will be had by all. but raise up a community, teaching them of their accomplishments. And like a garden that has been properly fertilized, a great harvest shall be laid at our country's feet, instead of finding a barren wasteland where no one, not even you, can breathe.
Welcome back to World Inkers Network. Today we have Sushant Thapa of Nepal. So Sushant, would you like to share some poems with us? So sure, go ahead and read a couple for us. We'll see what we have. Enjoy your work.
Okay, sure. So I will be reading a poem which is titled Reality. When the sky allowed us to be the rainbow, we aimed high. When the birds made us believe that we can fly, we thought high. Advancement is outside the bubble of thought. Science is a journey to space, and we also seek the healing lab in the world. My fingers think while I'm on screen, scripting my inkless text. I type to be wet in the ink of self-belief. From memory, I do not write my reality. Neither do richness nor pleasure bother my reality. What I hear is the clash of wars across the distant lands. What I see is the dreams buried beneath the common ground. Is it not beautiful to talk about the healing process? The smeared ashes of growing modern world bears the prowess of healing for the needful. Of faith can save the world. Earthly taste of the nature sets us on the ground lightly before shooting for the costly advancement. Your reality can be mine, and our reality can be to save the world where we reside. Thank you. So, this was reality. Now, I will read another poem titled Being a Poet. Being a poet. Allow me to be the poet of the whispers before being a poet of the words. Allow me to be the poet of the wave before glorifying the concrete world. Allow me be the poet of the wind before being the poet of touch. Allow me to be the poet of the clouds before being the poet of the sky. Allow me to be the poet of simplicity before being the poet of philosophy. Allow me to be the poet of thirst before being the poet of satisfaction. Thank you. So this was second poem. So now I have third poem for you. So it is titled Questions for Life. What language does imagination speak? What belief does faith foster? What is philosophy and abstraction? What does the silence say? Which smile does happiness cherish? Which boat the river of life waits to sail? Which answer questions the fate? How is life fulfilled in its totality? How real is the dream? How the garden of love blooms? What does the heart beat for? What is death without life? How tears wash the pain? What silences the voice of the voiceless? What does the flame of poverty destroy? What is greenery and richness? How music tunes the balance of mind? How do beginning and ending vary for all? So this is Questions for Life.
A lot of questions in that one. There's a lot of difference between the second poem and the third poem. I noticed in the second poem, it's like almost a litany of "let me be this, let me be that," and and what you're saying is it seems like you're referring to like being a simple part of something rather than the whole grand scheme of things in that second poem. And then the third poem is you have a lot of questions. You're kind of interrogating nature and life. And I think that it's very simple, basic, simple ideas that are being presented, but also there's a sort of like a commonality between the two, even though there's different approaches that you're using the different frame of mind to approach the same sort of logic. I think that's interesting in those two poems, especially in the. I really like the second one personally. I like all three of them. If you'd like to read another one, we'd love to hear it.
Okay, so another poem is titled Forgiveness. Let the rain speak to you of the dryness. Let the spaces in life be filled. Beauty is the voice, trembling and emerging out of disparity. Brick by brick falls the nature. Let it be joined with the glorious colors of attachment. We have learned to imitate colors from nature, the green and red, blue of this fallen universe. Plastic joy and feeble survival are the worldly gestures of time which can be disobeyed. Pearls of dancing joy, whirlwind of leaves, makes the roots of detachment painful. Moving eyes, skies of cloudy hearts, pour the rain of emotions, scattering and forgiving the dryness.
Wonderful. That was I really liked that one a lot. That was beautiful.
So
Do you
I
find
would like to
yourself?
read a short poem for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Very short one. So, rainbow. Rainbow, be the sky you want to be and let others see a rainbow in you. So this is four-line poem.
Wow. That's pretty simple to understand and easy, but it's also very illuminating and beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Do you find yourself influenced by spiritual texts or religious texts like the Bible or the in any of those kind of like that kind of literature as well, or is it not something you're interested in
So
terms of literature?
I am interested in reading religious text also, but
Hmm.
for now I have been focusing on my culture. So what our culture gives. So I'm following in being a Hindu.
Hmm.
So as a culture, I'm taking part in all those religious things. But I would like to go into the depth of the religious books, so what they proclaim. So I will be interested in reading. So if
Hmm.
I get time, I will definitely read Bible, and also I'm also thinking to read.
Excellent. It's good. I mean, I've read a few of the different religious texts, and
So I
there's a lot
was
of
reading
poetry.
Bhagavad Gita. I was reading Bhagavad Gita in Nepali. So it has, there's a very good thing about karma, and not expecting any results, just doing your task.
Hmm.
Uh, so some instructions are there in the Bhagavad Gita also. So you do not expect what your results. You just do the task. You do the karma. So and we all are influenced by it. Somehow.
Right. I think it's the beautiful ideas, and I think that as time has progressed, we've kind of started to understand, different aspects of the different faith traditions, and humanity's like, to me, that's where the revelation of it comes from. Like there's all these rich ideas that we kind of uncover over time, and we're learning to adapt to them and kind of approach life in those terms. And I think a lot of times we miss the central meanings of these texts, and I think poetry helps revitalize, some of those meanings as well, and helps us reflect on the beauty of life and the grandeur of what it is to be human. How do you see yourself as a poet in terms of like a mission or something you're trying to accomplish towards life instead of like from life? What do you want to give to life?
So there is, one idea that you will feel you have taken a lot from the world when you give a lot to the world. So this is actually it's my poem. So
Okay.
uh, so when you contribute, you start contributing, you will feel that you have taken a lot from the world. So it sounds like two different ideas, but so being a citizen of the world, and poetry is all about consciousness. It is just figuring out your way. So it is just not letting the things be in. So just it is about scripting things. So minutes of merit, my third book also, the title itself. So it is about scripting your feelings, and also poetry has that consciousness. And so it is really good. So being a poet, we can fulfill the burden of the understanding of the world. We are contributing from our side.
Hmm. That's an interesting concept. I like, and that reminds me of your first book, The Poetic Burden. That
Yeah.
title. So is there any message you would like to impart to viewers in conclusion of the program today?
So I have always been saying that, in our daily life, so we get tired of, we get bored and all. So we need to always find, new ways of seeking knowledge. So in new ways, sometimes you might be watching a movie, sometimes you might be writing a poem, sometimes, reading a novel. So you must always be acquiring something. So develop new ways of getting knowledge. So that's the main idea, and you stay focused on what you are doing. So somebody may be teaching and all, they might not be writing much, so they can focus on their job, and so expressing something that is really important. So keep writing, keep being creative.
Excellent. Would you like to share any shout outs or thank yous to friends and family and supporters at the conclusion
Yes,
here?
so I really want to thank my family for supporting me. So I have been writing poems and all. My dad also, he keeps encouraging me, and recently I have started teaching also. So I teach business English in the college. So they are also very good. My students and all, they have also, they are also curious about my works. So that's motivating me, and everybody associated with me, who daily comment on my Facebook, and also they're all of them, they are, really inspiring. So people from, so I would like to, mention, Moyes Podel sir. He's from the Gorkha Times, so he just keeps encouraging me to write more, and there is Sushant Kumar Bike, so he's also from Nepal. Sushant Kumar Bika. So he sends me poems to edit, and also we are really good friends. And so there are friends in Kathmandu who have been, so calling
Mhm.
me, who wants to meet with me and all. So I thank everyone from the bottom of my heart. So without their support, I would not be able to write.
Excellent. I believe we just published a translation you did of a
Ayush
poet
Badal,
there, a
yes.
younger poet. So that was a really nice trade. It's on our website. If anybody's curious about that, watching today, check out our website. And a wonderful poem. I can't remember the title off the top of my head. Do you remember? It was
It's not easy to become a writer. It's not
right there.
easy.
You go. I knew it was something like that. Yeah, an excellent poem. What was the name of the poet?
Ayush Badal.
Okay, good. Okay, I had a memory lapse there, but thanks for joining us on the program today. And if you know of any other people that may be interested in being a part of this World Inkers Network, doing some interviews or some readings with us, then let them know, and they can get in touch with me, and I'll definitely get them on the show. So thank you so much, Sushant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
You just watched World Inkers Network. And if you missed part, go back and on the YouTube and subscribe, like, share our content. Love it. Give us some comments. And we were looking for more poetry to publish, more art to publish on our website. More stories, more prose. Anything you want to share, you can get in touch at publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. And remember, we have the PayPal, which is paypal.me/NYParrot will be our support handle. So we're definitely looking for some financial support to help continue this project. paypal.me/NYParrot. So if you have a little extra to spare and you want to support the arts, this is a great way to do it. And it'll keep us moving, and it'll keep us advancing, and help us continue our mission and bringing the world community together in terms of the arts, and sharing what we're doing as a world artistic community with the rest of the world. We want to continue to do this. If you want to be on the show, you could be any kind of writer, any creative mind, actor, musician, painter, whatever you're doing. We want to talk with you about it. We would love to help the world understand you a little bit better as an artist. You can get in touch with me, Dustin Pickering, at literarycorner@newyorkparrot.com. Thanks for watching today. And if you got your pen in hand and your notebook is blank, shame on you. Get some writing done. Have a great afternoon. World Inkers Network. Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer. This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us